Hi, it is Thursday, February 20th. It is 7:04. Well, it's 8:04. I'm on the East Coast. And we are doing Leaving Eastern Parkway by Matthew Daub. And first, I want to just show you what he looks like. This is what he looks like. And at first, I want to hear what you have to say about the book. And then I actually found an interview with him, which I'm going to share with you in a minute. But Susan and I have been talking about it. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was super interesting. Susan.
I love this book. In fact, I recommended it to a friend of mine who has nothing to do with us here, and she couldn't put it down either.
Yeah.
I
Um,
I I was stuck on it. I could hardly put it down. And
yeah,
I don't know, I felt like it was kind of a story of heroism. That this
yeah,
guy was so brave and willing to take chances to get
yeah,
the kind of life that he wanted for himself.
yeah.
And I hate to say this, but I don't think it made I guess it's the
The
hospital.
Lubavitch.
It didn't make them look very good.
No.
That's for sure.
And we're going to talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
Other first thoughts about the book? Paula, then Leanne,
I was
then Abby.
I was very impressed with how the author wrote with the mind of a teenager, you
Yeah.
know, and I thought that he really was the character was so believable as he was going through his journey because of the way the way he perceived things as an adolescent and the trauma that he suffered.
And that was trauma.
Yeah.
Um, Leanne,
I
Abby, and
agree
then
with Susan.
Andy.
I absolutely love this book. I couldn't put this book down. I will tell you that before I got it, I thought if I read about what it was about, and I thought, I'm not sure I'm interested in, and then I got the book. And Vanessa, I have to tell you something unrelated that when I joined this book club, I didn't know, I came in late and I didn't know the premise that all the books have either a Jewish theme or a Jewish author, whatever. And at first I thought, is that going to be so limiting for me? And I'd say 90% of the books that we've read with you, that I've read with you, have been some of my favorite books I've ever read. That's the truth.
Best compliment of the evening, Leanne.
No, but
Feel
it's the
free to
truth.
top her.
It's definitely the truth.
Kudos to
I
Vanessa
thought
for
this
all the
was
great books.
really extraordinary. And my daughter has a friend who lived in this community in New York with her husband and 3 children. And she has a very different story, but it got to be an unbearable living situation for them. And they moved out to California. And now she's trying to find her community there. But you're right. It was hard for me to relate to what he was experiencing, but the writing and the story of this young man, it was extraordinary. I loved it.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for letting us.
Thank you. Abby, Andy, then Jesse.
I loved the book, but it really tugged at me emotionally. I think I've kind of been back and forth on my spiritual path, and having not grown up in that environment, but going to school in that environment and being sort of a defender of it because I could understand from the outside. I almost felt like I was not off the derrick, but kind of side, but could never get on and wanted to get on and was not accepted on because I was not religious enough. And my home wasn't religious enough, and just felt really excluded, wanting so much to belong to it. And I just have to get something off of my chest right now because it's so painful to me. My good friend, lost her brother the night before last, and he lives by himself in Florida and became part of a Chabad. And she went down there and she's been in touch with the Chabad people all this time. There aren't enough men for a minion. He will not officiate at that. And I know this is being recorded. I feel badly but it's heartbreaking to me. And I don't want to blast people that I really don't know or whatever, because I do have a good feeling about it as well. but the fact that he could hire men at $100 a person and pay their cab fare.
Uh-huh.
My friend is so devastated by this, and my heart just goes out to her too. And I don't know. So I had to get that off my chest because of what we're reading. So I apologize for that. But I did love the book, and I especially loved listening to it because the author, I think, not the author, the reader is Tversky, that I think comes from an Orthodox.
Yeah, he
Whatever.
pronounced everything
His,
correctly.
his pronunciation is wonderful, and that kind of spoke to me. I'm not sure for where, but it kind of addressed my kishkis.
Yeah. I'm very sorry to hear about, and we're gonna get back to Chabad. Jesse. No, wait, Andy, then Jesse.
I love the book also. This is the second time I've listened to it for a book group and felt it even more deeply and appreciated it more the second time. The relationships between Zev and his sister, how they had sort of absent parents, the good guys in the book the characters were so, I thought, very well developed, and that you can really relate to them. I think it's a wonderful coming of age book, and like we said, a sort of a sorry insight into
Chabad.
mhm.
Jesse and then Sandy.
Agree with everybody. Loved the book. Couldn't believe how quick I read through it. I think little over 2 days, I was done with it. And to follow up on Leanne's point, I was going through a kitchen drawer the other day and found one of your printouts, Vanessa, of all the books we've read, and it's several pages long, but it's very out of date. So
I can send you a new one.
you have taken us on such a book journey.
Yeah.
It's many.
I do want to say, for the people who started with me at Legacy Lakeside, the first book I picked was Plot Against America.
America.
Philip
Yep.
Roth, and you
Yep.
still,
Oh,
which I
God.
do like, but you
Yeah.
still stayed with me. That was a long book, and it was, you know,
that was a great book. That was
right. But looking back, I don't know if that should have been the first book.
Okay.
Sandy.
Yeah, I just walked in my house. I've been driving on the expressway trying to get here in time for this.
Yay, thank you.
Still got my coat on.
That's
Oh,
okay.
But first of all, loved the book. Just loved it. Wanted to meet this author. I mean, I think considering this is his first book,
Right.
Yeah.
and he's a visual artist. I mean, I just think sitting in an audience listening to him talk would be fantastic. Just such writing. And you know, this was very small print. I usually cannot read small print, but I was determined to get
Good.
into this book. It was wonderful. And having grown up in an Orthodox community, in an Orthodox shul, and being treated like a second-class citizen, all the boys were treated so well, and I was told to sit in the back seat at the cheder. And the rabbi never touched my hand or my shoulder or anything. It was awful. And, you know, I was married by an Orthodox rabbi because he happened to be the college rabbi. And I went to a, what do you call it? A mikvah. I did a mikvah and everything. And I want to admire these people, but this book really cemented a lot of thoughts in my mind. So thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
choosing this book.
You're welcome. Marilyn, then Merle.
I also love this book, and you know, it was really hard to put it down, but I actually just finished it yesterday on purpose because I want to have everything really fresh in my mind. And when it comes to the Chabad, it just so happens that on March 8th, I am going to a Chabad because one of my dear friends, they belong to a Chabad, and he's having a birthday celebration there. So it's going to be a service and then an oneg party afterwards. But also years ago, when my ex-husband was on the Chicago Board Options Exchange, the clearing firm that he cleared his trades through was owned by a very religious man who was also with the Chabad. And he brought a rabbi into the office there, and we had him at our home one night. And I'll never forget this because Rhonda was 18 years old at the time. And he said to me, Marilyn, it's not too late. I'm saying, too late for what? So, oh, you could have more children. And Rhonda should come to the yeshiva in New York to study because she was just going to be starting college. So yes, I mean, the Chabad people can be very, very forceful in what they want from you, but you do have to respect them to a certain degree too.
We're going to talk about that. Merle, I'll unmute you. Go ahead, Merle.
Thank you. My heart just broke for Zev from page 1. Everything was so horrible that was going on in his life. And those neighbors that he had to stay with, it was horrible. But what really struck me was that one day I was talking to Rabbi Dov Taylor's son, Jesse, and he told me that his father was a handball player. And I thought, wouldn't it have been great if Zev had Rabbi Dov Taylor as his rabbi instead of this rabbi? But that was the main thing I wanted to tell you, just that there are some Jewish rabbis, rabbis who play handball.
I thought that the rabbi in Champaign was very sympathetic. I loved that rabbi. I am right now in Champaign-Urbana. The Reformed congregation has a wife and husband, and I sent this to the wife. I said, you have to read this book. I said, the rabbi in Champaign comes out so good.
A bed of roses.
Yeah, and so I read through the book and then I started researching. So I thought, well, maybe it's a memoir. It is not a memoir. He knows nothing.
Wow.
He knows nothing about Chabad and he knows nothing about handball.
Huh.
But he watched and he researched, and he also is a expert on this artist, Plockman. And so my girlfriend has a picture by this woman. And so he is very artistic and he does all of that stuff. I found an interview by him. I'm putting it in the chat. It's fascinating. It's a half an hour long, but, and if next time you'll have to tell him, if you watch it, I just was not impressed with him as a person. Sandy said, oh, we could listen to him read. And I don't know, someone gave him the story and he switched it up, and the artwork on the cover is his. He did that. He wanted to use, let's see, something by Ben Shahn that was a handball. I don't understand why this is a handball thing. Come on. And he just kind of, not that one. It's, no, I'll have to go back. The whole thing was fascinating. Now, this is what I want to say about Chabad. I do think they have audacious hospitality. And at one time, Rick Jacobs, the head of the URJ, said the reform movement should have audacious hospitality. If you go into Chabad, they invite you if you went on Friday night, they invite you for dinner. They are very hospitable. However, and Marilyn, when you go to the birthday party, you're going to be on the women's side.
Oh, yeah.
They don't let, girls have, they call it a bat mitzvah, but they don't read from the Torah. And they don't even do Haftarah. They do like the 5 Megillot, the 5 scrolls, Ruth, Esther, something like that. And I think when you think about the whole premise that he had all this money, which he stole from the Rebbe, but they were getting women gets. a Jewish divorce. And
Right.
all that is true. There are men who hold women hostage for a get. And until you have a get, you can't get remarried again. So that is definitely true. And the one thing that Matthew Daub says in the interview, he goes, the Chabad community doesn't look favorably on him. Well, I can see
Oh.
why. But that made me like the book even more. And you see my bias, but I think it's absolutely believable. It is absolutely believable. You know, it's all men. They're misogynistic. There's no women anywhere near finances, nothing. You know, maybe they're in the kitchen or doing that type of stuff. So I thought that and the whole thing of him, you know, that they rationalize it, but we got the women to get, but they, you know, we're getting all this money. Susan, and then I have a question for everybody. I unmuted you.
Muted myself. I muted myself back and I didn't realize. Well, I have to say, quite a few years ago, my husband and I were privileged, I guess, to go to a wedding in Brooklyn that was, I don't know, Chabad or what, but whatever it was so, my husband like couldn't even introduce me to the men that he knew. They wouldn't look at me. And it was and then the women and the men had to sit separately. And thank goodness there was a woman who was a relative of the bride and groom who kind of befriended me and let me be with her so that she kept me. But I knew I was already told how I had to dress and that I didn't have to cover my hair or wear a wig because at the time my hair was so thick they would think I had a wig on.
I have that covered.
And I had to wear long sleeves and a high neck. And I mean, I had to go out and buy a dress for this wedding because I didn't have anything that was dressy enough in that vein.
Yeah.
And we had to sit separately. There was a machitza between the men and the women. And it was really funny. All the men with their black hats and their big fur things and everything
Dremels.
else. Right. And my husband had a white satin yarmulke.
Good for him.
But when the men were dancing around, you could see these men with the stremels and the black hats
Fedoras, yeah.
and everything. And there's this one guy with short hair and no payas and a white yarmulke bouncing around with the rest of the men.
Good for you guys for going.
Right.
But he and I would have to make a signal over the curtain to go meet outside so we could talk to each other.
Yeah.
It was a very, very
An experience.
experience.
Marilyn and then Evie.
You know, I don't know if this pertains to the people who belong to the Chabad or even the Hasidics, but I have been told by other people that I know who are really religious, more religious than I am, that when the men are doing all of the studying, they're in synagogue all day, and a lot of the women, they go out and work.
Right.
Because they need money.
Yep.
Because the men are not working at all. All
That's
they are
true.
doing is studying. I'm not sure if the Hasidics do that, but I know other very religious families, that's the way they work it. And I'm just wondering now, when I go on March 8th to this Chabad, and of course, my head is already taken care of, okay? I don't have to worry about that. I got that one down pat. But do I have to really be very careful how I dress? Can I wear slacks? Do I have to wear a dress?
Well, I mean, if you have, I would say you should dress, you know, modestly. I wouldn't wear a sleeveless shirt and.
Oh, no. I'll check with my girlfriend too.
Yeah, check with your girlfriend. That's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
Evie.
Yeah, I was just curious because in reading this book, I had mentioned Chabad, but I don't know that this was Chabad or just Lubavitch, and I don't know if this was typically Chabad because I think of that's more of a, I don't know. So maybe you can clue me in. And I just wanted to do make one comment about the Chabad in Highland Park. The times that Julian was in the hospital, Rabbi Shanowitz.
Anyway,
It was like a breath of fresh air when he would walk into that hospital room. He would come in and he would be dancing and he would have such a wonderful sense of humor and just, I mean, he knew that we were not Orthodox and I was teasing him about something in terms of coming over and it was like right before Sukkot, I think. And he said something about what if he were to come then, he would have to toss up his challah through the window and didn't know if I'd be able to catch him. I mean, but he would be this spark of brightness and joy as opposed to the chaplain that came in a couple of times. And, oh my God, was just
Yeah.
whatever. So I mean, I think I don't know if he's an exception, but he was just so refreshing to be around.
So I know both Rabbi Shanowitz and his wife Michala, and they are lovely. I've done programs with them, and I never ask because it's none of my business, but Chabad families are usually like 10, 12. They have no children.
No.
That has got to, that's got to
couldn't.
be super
unusual.
painful.
Yeah.
And they're just lovely, audacious hospitality. I mean, they're amazing. And Abby, I would say, for Chabad, this, level of religiosity is, the usual. And I also think, and there's many books, and I hope you got to the glossary at the end, off the derech, which means off of the way of life.
Yeah.
Where these kids are growing up in the United States, they don't speak English well, they can't do anything. And Hebrew U in Jerusalem had a computer lab and they opened it to the public and they had to shut it down. This is 20 years ago. Why? Because the Haredi were coming in to do two things, the boys, to watch porn
Or
and stocks,
Oh,
to trade stocks.
Hmm.
Okay, Sandy, then Elaine, then Paula.
Okay, I went through the whole Orthodox wedding. I walked around my husband 7 times, and it was really an experience. But I loved the Orthodox rabbi at the university. I just loved him, and he was a lifetime friend of ours, and even came to our house to eat because he knew that I would give him nothing that was wrong. When we were in Israel, I would only go to great lengths to find a place where they had sliced bread already packaged, and I would get sliced cheese already sliced. I didn't use my knives or anything, and I used glass plates or paper plates. I mean, but he would sit down and have a meal with me, with his family.
Yeah, that's just lovely.
He was a loving person. And thank God he lived to about 95 years
Okay.
old.
Fantastic. Elaine and then Paula. Elaine.
was really surprised, knowing how they value the boys more and the boys are in school all the time. I was really surprised in this book to find out how behind he was scholastically and that he really needed to catch up scholastically.
English. It's in
And
English.
if that had been, yeah,
He was a
it's
Taurus,
just like
Taurus
you could
scholar.
understand that if it was the girls.
The girls, I don't know what the girls know, but these kids who go off the derech, they have to like be re-socialized and taught English and math and how to use a computer, boys and girls. I think it's equal opportunity of that. Paula.
well, whenever he got extremely anxious, he reverted to his like Yiddish, his Yiddish language. He forgot how to speak English as an Americanized person. Also,
They call it yeshivish.
yeah, yeshivish. And then, he learned about culture by watching Twin Peaks and Soul Train.
Yeah.
Right, he liked Cornelius, right?
I would like to know how other people felt about his relationship with Joe. Because
Oh, yes.
and they both were lacking so much in their family connections, and when they found
Mhm.
each other, I thought it was really beautiful and meaningful. It was sad that his death had to be part of the plot, but
Right.
it did, you know.
And you know, he became really a surrogate father for him.
Father for him. Yeah, I liked his Christmas tree yard-site lamp.
Yep.
Right, yeah.
I liked all of that.
All of that.
It's Joe is like Zev, in exile from his native Brooklyn, a fellow misfit displaced in the Midwest. For Zev, Joe becomes a therapist, a confidant, a protector, and ultimately a Rebbe whose handball philosophy teaches Zev how to be a mensch. For Joe, Zev replaces the son he has lost, allowing him a measure of reconciliation with his unresolved past. In the end, their shared passion for handball binds them, leaving a balm of Rahmanis, Jewish mercy, on their mutually self-lacerating, tortured souls.
I have one quick question, and then
Yeah.
is it ever determined that Joe's accident was caused by the Jewish mob, or was it an accident?
I think it was an accident.
Was
Yeah,
true.
because
Yeah.
But Zev felt it
Resnick was
in
already in
jail.
jail.
already.
Right. Yeah.
But do we think that the dad was killed by them?
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yes.
That's, it took me a hot minute to realize that. And they finally, you know, until Zev realized it, I was like, oh yeah, he probably
Oh.
was killed. And then in the interview, Matthew Daub reads the first 3 paragraphs out loud. And it's always good to go back and look at the beginning. And, you know, there was no skid marks. The car was going 55 miles an hour, you know, in downtown, you know, we're at Brooklyn. I mean, that, so that resonated with me. Marilyn.
I just want to interject one little thing when we were talking about Jewish wedding of the Orthodox.
Mhm.
When my granddaughter Sari was married last June, she did walk around her future husband Sam 7 times. She really wanted to do that. And I'm telling you, I had to keep wiping my face because I was I was kvelling. It was so beautiful to
Yeah.
watch that.
Yeah.
When
I
Laura
feel
was
that in her.
married, she twisted that. She walked around her future husband 3 times. He walked around her 3 times, and then they walked around each other once.
That's just
Oh,
lovely.
my grandson and his wife got married last July, and that's what they did too.
Yeah.
3 times for each of them, and then
Yeah.
1 time together.
It's
Yeah.
lovely.
Mhm.
What did you think of the boyfriend, Paul? Or what did you think of Freda?
She,
I liked her.
I liked her a lot. I thought she was a wonderful sister, but she
But
allowed
she left him.
she left him. Yeah, but
Twice she left it.
Yeah.
it's self-preservation, I think, in her mind.
She didn't. Why wouldn't she try to take him with
Take him with
her?
Well,
And I thought the boyfriend was a real shit. And
Abuser.
No, he was
I
a no
did
goodness.
not
yeah,
find it very likable that she took off without letting him know where she's going, that
okay.
she took, I mean, she was entitled to half the money, but she took
Yeah.
the money without letting him
Yeah.
know. I thought that was really not an upstanding thing to do.
I
She
agree.
was very selfish. She was very selfish, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Leanne.
And I agree with you and I hear what you're saying, but I cut her some slack. I don't think she had a choice. I don't think she was able to give any more to her brother until she figured out her life.
Yeah.
And she was, used and abused probably her whole life in
She
certain
left at
respects.
what, 17 or 18?
And I never saw it that she left him. I always felt that there was that cord, there was that connection, and that somehow they would get back together. And I think he forgave her.
No, he
Yeah.
did. He did forgive
I
her.
hear what you're saying, and yet I read it and it almost made sense to me.
Yeah.
I felt that she had to do that. She had to get away from the abusive boyfriend, and she had no stability in her life to care for her brother.
Yeah.
But she guided him. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
she supported him, she guided him. I think she gave him a lot when they lived together.
Agreed. Agreed.
Yeah.
Sue and then Sandy. Sue.
Yeah, Leanne, I agree with you. And at the very end, she asked to be forgiven
Yes.
from him,
Mm.
and he did forgive her. So she came around. And I do, but I agree with you. I think in many ways she was given no choices because of the hurt that she had experienced.
Yeah.
And no parenting, and left, you know, she left
Exactly.
no parenting and a sick mother.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a
Yeah.
mother that committed suicide.
Yes. Yeah.
I think I take back my.
Wait. Sandy, go ahead.
I thought it was survival too. What was interesting to me was she took half the money, and in the Chabad, or the whatever the religion was, you know, only the son was entitled to it, and she took half. She didn't take it all. She took half, and I sort of thought that was, you know, in a way, with depending on whose laws you're following, entitled. And and Zev really wasn't that upset about it. He figured it out.
He did. And, you know, but I kept thinking, you know, you think about the different, I don't know, villains, Shmuel Resnick and Heshi, you know, they were just terrible. And when Zev had to live with him, you know, at first I was wondering if they were going for pedophile or whatever, which they didn't, thank God. But you know, he came to a bad end, Shmuel Resnick, and I think he deserved it. And you know, I thought that the very ending of the book, where he's going to call the redheaded girl,
Yeah.
not unlike Charlie Brown,
Yeah.
is at least kind of hopeful.
Yeah.
And that
Yep.
he is going to, you know, I don't know, have a life and enjoy his life. And what he did to catch up, to be, you know, to go to school, and then he didn't, you know, he wanted to play handball and he didn't go back. And, you know, all of that was, and I think we've said before, the author really took, it was from a teenager's point of view. And it definitely was, you know, a teenager's point of view.
I had
Now, yes, Sandy.
another thing was how I was the thought. All the hustling that went on with
Oh.
playing ball, you know, what did people think about that?
Yeah. I don't know enough about handball. So I don't know if it's realistic.
But what about all the betting that went on?
Well, that's what I mean. Is that realistic?
I think it was.
I think
Yeah.
it was.
I think it was.
I think
My
it was.
brother used to play pinners, throwing a pink rubber ball against the building, and that was called pinners.
But did
I
he
haven't thought
bet?
about that in a million years.
Did
But
he
that's not,
bet?
it's not handball. It's not handball, but
That
Yeah,
was
Susan?
against stairs, wasn't it, Marilyn? Against a stairway. They
no,
played
they
pinners.
did it. No, they did it against the brick wall.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and the ball would come right back. You catch it and then throw it again. I never did it, but my brother did.
Those pink handballs were really a New York thing. They were, in fact, we have a good friend who's an author that wrote a book where he talks about that. It's called Sewer Balls. And it's a thing in New York, those pink balls.
Yeah.
I think during that time, so many people weren't able to complete their education. They had a hustle. They, you know, they were street smart. They weren't educated, highly educated. And this was his religion. Handball became his religion. It was the thing he could count on. When he was angry at God, he wasn't angry with himself, when he could play and be focused.
Right.
And he
Yeah.
made money doing it too. which he needed.
Right.
Yeah.
But, you know, also before cell phones, before, so when he would move or go places, he, you know, everyone on this book group knows what a phone booth looks like. But our kids don't. Well, not our kids do, our grandkids. My grandkids saw a phone booth once and they were enchanted. It was like a toy. And you know, and they know, even like I FaceTime with my kids and they still, not my kids, my grandkids, you know, they hold it up to their ear. They know they're supposed to do that. So that it was heartbreaking. I actually thought when Frida couldn't find Zev, I actually thought that the Chabad would try to wheel him back to Brooklyn a little bit harder. So,
Yeah.
which I don't know that they did or not.
Maybe they were afraid that he would unearth their criminal element, that it would be even more public.
The
And wasn't the
There is-
rabbi who was asking him to come back, he was involved in all of that too.
yeah.
So, yeah.
So I have a question, Vanessa. So I'm Googling the Rebbe who did die. Why have
Nearson.
they not replaced him? It's been
What's
quite
that?
a while since he died.
I hear somebody else. So, you know, these are dynasties. And with this guy Schneerson, some people think, you know, he's the Messiah and he came back, you know, that he's still here in some form or whatever, not unlike Christianity. And I also think that many of these Hasidic sects, Lubavitch, Satmar. There's a great book. It's really old, but it's called Boy Chicks in the Hood. And it's about all the different Hasidic sects. And they, you know, they're from Europe and they were decimated during the Holocaust. And so, you know, they're looking for it, and you know, it's passed from father to son. So if, you know, there's no one to pass it on to, and what if the son is not smart or doesn't want to do it, or you know, and obviously you know, the women have nothing to do with it.
It's interesting. So I Googled 770, the
Yeah,
street address, and when you pull up the street view, it's quite interesting.
yeah.
Quite interesting. There's a whole lot of activity going on in front of 770. All the guys are hanging out. Quite a picture. Pull it up.
So I'll while we're talking, I'll put it up and share it. But the Rebbe and, you know, the head of Chabad, they control all the Chabadniks. They get a lot of money. The money comes in from, you know, reform people as well. And, you know, some of these commercials that you've seen are by Aish. That's the name, which means fire, but it's this Orthodox group, ultra Orthodox group. And what the Rebbe tells you to do, you have to do. So if you, when I was at University of Michigan, the Hillel rabbi, you know, had 5 kids. They only spoke Yiddish. And he wanted to move so he could send his kids to yeshiva. And the rabbi said, no, you're doing a good job there. You're making money. You have all these students. And they had to stay there. Now, you know, Shanowitz is older. Central Synagogue is a beautiful synagogue. And, you know, maybe, and he is near Chicago with yeshivas and, you know, he can get a minion. So, you know, maybe he wants to be there, but some of these, you know, super young couples who, you know, they put them in chuppahs and, you know, they put them in far-flung places of the world. And you can be sure, if you travel anywhere in the world, over Passover, there'll be a Chabad, Seder there. And, they proselytize, and they're very, they're a missionary to Jews only. Sandy.
We can remember what happened in India when they went up on the roof, these terrorists, and they killed the young Chabad rabbi and his wife, and his little boy was saved by the Muslim woman, and then he was brought to Israel. We don't hear anything about the boy. He's grown up now. He must be in his 20s. But that was a miracle that that child was saved. But as far as Rabbi Shanowitz, he's a saint. And he even has hugged me. It shocked me. He put his arms around me and hugged me. He didn't kiss me or anything, just really hugged me close. And also, David and my daughter were working on a project during Sukkot. They were at a home in, I guess, in Highland Park or whatever. And they were working outside in street clothes. And he walked by. He was coming home from the service at Sukkot. And he said, "Hi, don't I know you?" He saw my daughter, who's very tall like me, and he said, "Aren't you Sandy's daughter?" And she said, "Yes." And he said, "It's wonderful to see you. Please, when you're done with your work, come over to our house and have a Sukkot meal with us." I mean, they were in work clothes working in Sukkot.
Yeah.
And he stopped to invite them.
Yeah. I mean,
It's wonderful.
they're audacious hospitality. I can't say it enough.
And one day I took a friend who had just lost her husband, and she had Parkinson's, and I took her to his service. She said that was the only thing she wanted me to do, take her on Shabbat to his service. And I did, and I drove into the parking lot and left her off with her walker, and then I went and parked. And they serve a luncheon afterwards. So I went up to him and I said, "Thank you for keeping the parking lot open on Shabbat." And he said, "God does not ask you how you come to service. He's so happy that you're here." I mean, he's beautiful.
Yeah. This is the first time we met in Rabbi Jerry's office. I was not even sure Rabbi Jerry was a Jew, but in his own way, he had taught me more about the heart of Judaism than I'd learned in my years studying the intricacies of Talmud and yeshiva. And Rabbi Jerry says, we may not be able to understand why events happen as they do, but we have choices, all of us. We can choose to believe or not. You have to decide what you're capable of accepting, which is better for you, to love with faith in a God who cares and is good, or to believe in the universe, or to believe the universe is a random place with no purpose. And I thought, some of those teachings were absolutely beautiful, and was heartened that Rabbi Jerry took an interest in him and helped him and got him tutors, and the Jewish community really rallied around him. And I also thought that was realistic. These small Jewish communities in far-flung places, I think that's absolutely realistic. Andy.
I thought Rabbi and Joe were phenomenal. My only criticism of Frida, I understand that she felt like she had no choice, but she could have made a little bit of preparation to make it a little easier for Zev when you had such two strong role models that could have immediately jumped in and helped Zev. It might not have made such a good story or as good a redemption later on, but Frida just leaving when there were these two people in Zev's life who could have helped.
But she left her in the summer, and Zev was with Joe. She thought he was good with Joe. So that's
true.
She thought he was in good hands.
And there's no cell phones, and they're calling, on
that's
a phone booth,
true.
and that's a little unreliable. How does Daub draw parallels between Zev and the character George Samsa in Franz Kafka's story, The Metamorphosis, throughout the novel? And of course, I had to, think about that, the man who wakes up as a cockroach. I knew what it was like to wake up in an unfamiliar body with my world turned upside down. I understood Gregor Samsa's shames, as well as his parents' shame over having vermin for a son. And I feared my own metamorphosis would come to as bad an end as his. Thoughts? I mean, obviously Matthew Daub is well read and, well written, and, he understood. Matthew Dodd explains, the metamorphosis is a tragedy. It's way out there, but it's a tragic story. Through no fault of his own, Gregor Samson becomes a cockroach, or at least a large insect, and he was taking care of his entire family until he could do them no good. That part was sad. And the vermin in this story, when he was in those
terrible rentals.
yes, those
The bed bugs.
yeah, the bed bugs.
Oh, my-
Yeah, him spraying it, and finally, I think because he's just so direct, he said, if you don't take care of this, I'm gonna, he learned that from Joe,
Yeah.
that he's gonna report them. And my heart just goes out.
Yeah.
And when he meets, they mentioned all the secondary characters, Rob Felcher, Shmuel Resnick, Sharon Coton and her parents, he was so enamored, with this woman. And then Dana Epstein, who's going to college in New York. And, of course, as a mother and a grandmother, and all three of my kids went to college, Alital is here listening to me, so she can hear all the things that I say about my kids. I felt bad that what's going to happen to Zeb?
Yeah.
You can't play handball your whole life.
Right.
He doesn't.
Right.
He doesn't even have a GED or a high school diploma.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the saddest part.
Yeah.
That is the saddest part.
Especially after he worked so hard
Yeah.
to
Yeah. He caught up.
remediate and be in that class.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
Okay, Raina, I got you unmuted.
You did?
Yep.
I've been listening.
Okay, so do you have any comments?
No, I love the book.
Okay.
No, and the one thing that bothered me was if he first of all, he could not possibly go back to his community. I would think it would be just not, it would be so painful to him and so painful to other people. I am the granddaughter of an Orthodox rabbi. My grandfather Louis came over from let's say Lithuania in 1910, and he was a rabbi in a small Jewish community. It was very difficult for my mother and her sisters and my uncle to be a part of that community because they used to miss so many holidays, especially in the fall. They were always behind. But in terms of leaving the community, I do you know that one of my mother's neighbors, well, the family, was Bob Dylan's parents?
No, did not know that.
And
So
if you
they were in Minneapolis?
Hibbing, Minnesota, and my grandparents were in Duluth.
Huh.
And everybody there was probably Orthodox,
Yeah.
And the first scene, if you have not seen A Complete Unknown, The first scene shows Bob Dylan leaving that community and he never goes back to it, completely gives it up.
Yeah.
But he is from an Orthodox Jewish background, believe it
Yeah,
or not.
absolutely. I mean, look, that movie was, thank God, only 2 hours and some change. They couldn't get to everything. And
Right.
if you've seen Cantor J's, his 2 sessions on Bob Dylan, he covered a lot. But yeah, he went through a lot of different religious, Jewish. He converted to Christianity, converted back to Judaism. So, yeah, I agree with you, though. I don't think that Zev can go back to the Chabad community. Sandy, and then,
I was taken by the episode when he was bullied, when he was in Urbana and he had to fight his way out, and he assumed some responsibility. What did other people think about that?
It's great. And he didn't turn anyone in. He was awesome with that.
right. I don't know how realistic that is, because I think, you probably get in trouble, but you felt like he stood up for himself, and I think that's all from Joe.
Right, it is.
That was all Joe's teaching.
Yeah.
Fight and so on and so forth. Leanne and then Merle.
So here I go again, playing devil's advocate. I have a very different take on his future and the end of the book. I see it that it was a very positive thing. This is a young man who fought his entire life. He was so strong. He was so resilient. He raised himself, and I felt at the end of the book incredibly hopeful for him. Not everybody has to go to college. Yeah, the GED would have been nice, and there's nothing that I felt that would prevent him from getting that. In fact, I could even envision that he would go on to higher education. And just that connection that he made with, what was her name?
Dana.
At the end.
Dana.
Yeah, I felt that the author was leaving us with something positive, like
Yeah.
that he would go on and he would make a good life for himself. I thought he had all of the skills that he needed. He was wise beyond his years, had experiences that many adults would never have, and learned how to figure things out. So I didn't see it as a maybe that's what I have to do with these things. I have to find something positive.
I don't disagree with you. I didn't think it was sad, but I was just like, I felt bad for him.
Yeah, I do feel bad.
Meryl and then Paula.
I just thought it was interesting as far as the structure of the book that Zev came full circle back to the community, looking for Shmuel with the gun in his pants, and finally running into Yossi. And Yossi says to him, "So you do not know from all this?" And he and the rest of them lives on charity. Shmuel Resnick is in jail. He's in prison, and they're all in prison. And he said he could hardly keep himself from grinning. Like, thank God he didn't have to commit the crime.
Yeah.
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 He didn't have to be like that boy from that boy who killed the CEO of the insurance company. He didn't have to be like that.
Luigi Mangione. Yeah.
Yes, Luigi, who's already raised $450,000 for lawyers just from people sending him money because
I'm
they
sure.
like the way he looks.
Yes.
But this boy, I mean, he was so lucky. He really dodged a bullet that he did not find
Yes.
Shmuel Resnick,
Right.
and he could go
I
on,
agree with that.
live his life.
Paula.
Leanne, I agree with you, but do you think he's going back to the religious community or a secular Jewish life in the community? Because I don't see him going back to be an observant
Never.
never.
No.
Yeah.
I think he'll
More of
I
a
think he's
secular
learned
life.
too much in terms of the secular experience, and but I think that
He was
his
hopeful.
Judaism and the way what
Yes.
makes him feel comfortable, he'll continue with.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Abby.
Yeah, I agree with Leanne in terms of the fact that he ran into Dana at that particular point, the fact that he put that piece of paper back in his pocket meant that he was maybe getting ready to be open to something else, as well as the connection between Dana and Freda mentioning to him early on, maybe he should give her a call, which was of course much earlier, but just that memory that she had also said that. And the fact that she was part of that more that of the Jewish community in Urbana, I think maybe he'll come back into not the Orthodox fold, but maybe another realm within Judaism and the appreciation of higher education. I mean, I just found that very encouraging, and like that expression, like when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And I just felt that she just seemed to have a certain amount of stability that maybe he was ready to gravitate toward.
Yeah. Marilyn.
As far as his going back to the way he lived his life as a young boy, he would never do that. But he always wore his yarmulke.
Right.
Whenever he was
Right.
playing handball.
Right.
And he said, I am a Jew. And I think he would always, and from what I'm thinking of the book, he would always be Jewish and wear his yarmulke. And he's going to call Dana and they're going to get together.
Right. And I also felt good because Freda liked her and said, why don't you, give her a chance instead of that snooty Sharon. But last, where do you envision Zev's life headed after the book ends? Does he live happily ever after? On page 190, I would survive. After all, I had been through worse. Don't forget, I spent many years with a mother who could not be a mother, a father who loved the Rebbe more than his own son. You think I wasn't lonely then? I survived that, just as I survived Shmuel Resnick's beating. I endured the mockery of the tough guys on the handball court. Brooklyn guys, not those Midwest amateurs who did not know how to draw a proper swastika. That was pretty funny.
Yeah.
It's an hour later. It's 9 o'clock here. Our next book is, wait, I have to
I
go.
just got it today.
Oh, good. First of all, I'll tell you a little bit about Lihi Lapid. Her husband is Yair Lapid, and he is he is a politician in Israel. He was part of not Bibi's government, but really the opposition, and somebody who, I think could take the country in the way that I would like to see it being taken. So I think it's an interesting book. I hope you like it. She's, interesting on her own. And, there's lots of interviews and things for us to, for me to look at and find out about her. And I hope you enjoy it. Taking care of a little business, and I will send this tomorrow in the email with the recording. That our next, we meet again March 27th, Thursday night. And in April, I had chosen March 24th, and I'm going to have to make that be the next week, May 1st. We're going out of town to South Korea to a family wedding.
Oh.
I'll be able to tell you all about it, and I should be awake. And then the last May one is the end of May. So I will send out the books and the new dates, and you will have everything. And I just learned, Mikol Melamde Hiskalti, from all my students, I learned, you always bring something new. Everybody adds their own interpretations to this. And Raina, I hope you enjoyed coming back in.
I did.
It's her first Zoom, but
Yeah, well, yes.
I was talking with someone today, my daughter's in-laws. I said, we used to be in people's homes, and there was COVID, then it's night, then it's this, then it's that. We have people in Florida. So, I just enjoy this. I enjoy reading the books, and it's great to see everyone. Tomorrow night at Macomb is Tikkun Olam Shabbat. And there's a lot of things coming up in the next couple of weeks. So if you ever need anything, come see me. But everything's in the McComb home of different activities and everything, something for everyone.
Thank you so much. This
Thank
was
you,
a
Vanessa.
great.
Really,
Thanks,
it's my honor,
Vanessa.
my honor.
Have a good
Vanessa.
trip.
Have a good
Yes,
trip.
Thanks, Vanessa.
Enjoy
Thanks,
yourself with your
everybody.
grandchildren.
Thank
My
you.
grandson is going
Grandchildren.
back into Gaza
Oh,
next week, so please say a prayer
Thank
for
you.
Javi.
all
Oh,
right,
my
all right.
God.
you.
All
We
right.
We'll
We
we'll
wish
hold
him
it in our
well.
hearts. I'm so sorry, Sandy. So sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right,
Not
be
easy.
well,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.